Nintendo knows how to empty the fucking wallets of fans. They're just like, hey, over here, guess what? New 3DS is coming out, and people are just like, no, my money! Like, they're getting flipped, turned upside down, like in fucking Nightmare on Elm Street, minus all the blood and the killing and stuff, and money's just falling out of them. You swear it's a fucking Steam sale, but it's just Nintendo who are like, ha 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 ha, and it's just printing money everywhere, just money just flying through the sky, right into a fucking big old Scrooge McDuck money bin vault, whatever the fuck. Doesn't matter. Anyway, recently there was a Nintendo Direct over in Japan where they showcased that they're going to have another iteration in the 3DS lineup. So we're going to have the regular 3DS, the 3DS XL, the Nintendo 2DS, which is just a 3DS, just, you know, one little slate. And now we're going to have the new 3DS, which that title might end up changing by time it reaches any kind of European or American shores. Now, the new 3DS, which I hope that they change to like 3DS Plus or some shit like that, because the name New 3DS is not exactly going to hold after X amount of months that it's out. Kind of like with DC Comics, the New 52 should not be called the New 52 after it's been out for so many years. The title ends up becoming redundant. So, New 3DS has a whole ton of extra features to it that the regular 3DS and 3DS XL don't actually have. And essentially, this is like a pretty decent little upgrade. To begin with, it has a secondary analog stick built into it, but I'm going to call it a nub, because that's kind of what it is. It's just like a little nub. It's about the size of a button, one of the face buttons that you'd see on the front of the 3DS, and that's going to be your secondary analog stick. Now, I was both happy about this, but also kind of scratching my head thinking about it, because due to the fact that they switched where the power button is on it, and they moved some stuff around, why couldn't they just have the full actual disc? Or whatever the hell you want to go, slider, yeah, we'll just call it that. Why couldn't they just have one of the full sliders on there, especially on the 3DS XL model, which obviously has a shit ton more space to go and work with. But I think that that would just be a more natural feeling control scheme for most gamers out there. Instead of having to get that big ass fucking bulky attachment shit, I passed on that. But if they're going to have this implemented from the get-go, on the hardware, it makes me wonder if any future games out there are going to be patched to work alongside it, whereas, you know, most of them, like Resident Evil Revelations is like just a primary example I can think of that I got to try with the dual analog setup, but I wonder if they'll patch pre-existing games to work alongside with something like that. But with that, I mean, I'm glad it's on there, but again, I just feel that the full one would make a lot more sense, because they have the space for it, so why not fucking do it? They changed the face buttons as well. The face buttons actually more resemble the Famicom style setup, which I'm a big fan of. I always like the Super Famicom controller design. Like, it's actually one of my more favorite looking systems. So it's red, green, yellow, blue. And obviously anybody that's well versed with it, if you've seen 360 controllers, then yeah, there you go. Neo Geo, same exact thing. So they actually have done that with the regular 3DS, whereas the 3DS XL, it's actually just like, you know, the buttons A, B, X, Y. Those are the, like, the actual letters themselves are colored in, whereas the button is same exact color as the system itself. So then, the thing that I was kind of impressed with was that this is going to boast a more powerful CPU in it. And due to that, that means that they're going to be able to put out better games, because they have the beefier hardware to go and work with. Now, this right here is exciting, but at the same point, this is kind of a double-edged sword. The double-edged sword comes into play that, well, you have more processing power and stuff to work with. This kind of takes me back to the days of the Nintendo 64 whenever they brought out the RAM expansion pack, because you're going to have games that are only going to be able to work with it. So they actually announced one of them. They actually have a port of Xenoblade Chronicles that's going to be going onto the 3DS. That alone had me excited as shit, but I realized I kind of just wanted to be on Wii U. Call me an asshole if you really want, but maybe they could do both, maybe. Crossing fingers here. But I think that when you have games that are only going to be compatible with something, you might end up confusing the market. And this has happened down the road. Anytime that there were some kind of attachments or upgrades, the regular everyday folks that know jack fuck all about handhelds and systems and consoles and all that stuff won't even realize that it's going to say something like, you know, new 3DS only or some shit like that. That's going to be on the box cover just to make sure that people are aware that this is only compatible with these versions of the Nintendo 3DS family. Now, and the thing is, it also kind of sucks for anybody that already has a Nintendo 3DS. Like, I have mine sitting right there. And for me, if there's going to be games coming out for the new 3DS that are only going to work with it, I'm going to have to go and plunk down, you know, $150, $180 to go and get the new version of the 3DS so I can go and play that actual game. Now, that can be a pain in the ass, but that's kind of how it is with gaming in general. I mean, I fucking look at, like, the mobile market in general. Anytime that you have a phone, your shit's outdated within, like, a month or two. There's already a better phone out there, and then the more that it goes along, like, if you've had a phone for, like, 2 years or something, your shit's, like, severely outdated. And there's all sorts of things that are coming out for the newer phones, specifically, that will run like complete ass, or won't even run at all on your phone. So that's what this was starting to remind me of. I'm like, fuck, that kind of sucks. Kind of sucks just a little bit. But some other things that they ended up showcasing with this is that they were trying to go and work with the actual 3D screen on it. Because basically you'd have to hold it at just the right distance from you and at just the right angle to be able to get the whole 3 dimensions and shit and get the actual effect of 3D. Well, they want to make it so that you'd be able to hold it at more obscure angles and stuff and still get immersed into it like that. Which, for me, it's not really going to make much of a difference at all because I never turn the 3D on, like, at all. I never have a reason to. So, but I'm glad for anybody out there that is actually involved in the whole 3D aspect of it. We'll be getting more out of it since it's essentially going to be better. And they also have an auto-dimming option that's built into it so that, you know, this will actually save on power. In addition, you know, it won't be, like, absurdly bright whenever you're in a really bright setting. So I was like, well, that's kind of cool, but I can adjust the shit manually on my own, so I'm hoping that they actually allow you to do that. I'll just keep at whatever fucking setting that I feel. I don't need it, you know, getting bright and getting dark just at random. I'll be like, fucking quit doing that shit. On the back of it, they actually have 2 different things that I was just like, huh, I did not see this coming. They have a little slot for micro SD. You actually have to take the back cover off of it to be able to gain access to it, but this is just additional. The only thing that it had me wondering, though, was while looking at all the pictures and different angles, I didn't actually see a slot for a regular SD card. And that made me kind of wonder, is that something that they've just done away with? Now, keep in mind, I have the regular 3DS XL, so I'm just like, well, will that only be on that version since it's a bigger system? Or, like, is the micro SD in addition, or is this outright replacing it just due to, like, you know, space constraints? Maybe? I'm just throwing that out there trying to go and figure that out. Like, I like the idea if it's in addition, so you could have 2 storage options on there, but micro SD and regular SD, I mean, you can get those bitches up into the fucking, like, super duper kilobyte, and like, oh, 64 gigabyte fucking SD card, no problem, kapow, there you go, and you don't run out of room for quite some time. But I was just wondering about that. I'm like, is that what the case is going to be? Because that, in a way, would be really inconvenient to have to always take off the back to be able to gain access to the card instead of just flipping over something and just popping a little fucker right out. But, you know, we're going to have to go and see about that. The other thing was, on top, we have the shoulder buttons. Now, this is actually going to work a little more like the Pro Controller. If you remember back on the Nintendo Wii, the original Pro Controller, the one that's shaped like an actual pill, they had the shoulder buttons. You had 2 shoulder buttons here, and then you had 2 more little button-type ones that were in the center. I actually was never a fan of that design because I realized that it was really uncomfortable. And it might be different for different people out there, but for me, anytime that I was playing, shoulder buttons, it was just fine, but having to go and reach over without pressing and just the overall reach to go like that with your finger, it wasn't a natural motion for my hands to go and make, and it was just awkward. Like, whenever they're horizontal from one another, it's kind of weird. Whenever they're vertical, that works out just fine, but the thing is, for them to make it vertical, that would end up making the system a little bit beefier than what they would really want, and thus make it a little more awkward whenever you're sliding in and out of your pocket, because it'll be going catching on shit. Which I'm sure that they've actually thought about that, but to me, that's the only one that makes a lot of sense. Am I happy about the additional options of ZL and ZR? Yes, but it's fucking weird for me. Maybe I'll get accustomed to it and grow used to it. I don't really know, but for the time being, it's another one of those things of I'm going to have that fucker in my hands and have some kind of game that utilizes those buttons frequently for me to be able to be like, yeah, I got used to it after a while, or I'm just gonna be like, nah, that shit fucking hurts like hell. It's kind of like the Neo Geo AES control scheme. You know, a really nice controller, but when they're at this like vertical incline like that, you're like, this is not natural. Why can't it just be horizontal? That makes so much more sense. You know, fuck it, whatever. But they had also announced that they were showing off that they have all these faceplates that they were going to go and put on it, which made me think of the Game Boy Micro, because whenever the Game Boy Micro came out, they had, like, you could get packs of faceplates and buy them for it, and whenever you got the Game Boy Micro in general, they would give you additional faceplates for it. So maybe this will be their way of eliminating having to do shitloads and shitloads of different SKU numbered limited editions out there, which I prefer, to be honest, but the option of having like a faceplate on there, I think actually kicks a lot of ass. It'll be something, you know, it's kind of nice. So, but with this particular announcement, it just makes, oh, actually, I can't believe I almost forgot about this. So they actually have one more thing, the near field communications, NFC, whatever the fuck you want to call it, but those Amiibo figures, they were showing them off a while ago. I actually talked about them on channel here, but they have it built in. Normally, they had announced that you're going to have to get an attachment, plug it into your 3DS for this to go and read those, because there's going to be a bunch of games on the 3DS and the Wii U that actually read these figures. Well, they have it built in kind of like with the Wii U tablet controller. The bottom part of the screen, you just kind of lay it on there, and it has the reader built into the bottom portion of the system, so it'll work just like that. No problems whatsoever. So in a lot of ways, this is actually a big time upgrade. So we got the Amiibo figures, which are going to be coming out, which I thought was kind of cool that they have this built into it outright. So, you know, they're not fucking nickel and diming everybody for every single thing. But at the same point, a lot of people might feel that this is kind of bullshit because they're already heavily invested into the system and its library and stuff, and don't want to have to go and pick up a separate system altogether, which I can understand because, well, the fact is we all have fucking bills to pay, and not all of us are goddamn fucking millionaires, unfortunately. Not that you have to be a millionaire to afford a $150 system, but you get what the fuck I mean. So I can understand both sides of an argument of something like this. Is this going to outright replace the 3DS as we know it? Like, are they going to quit making regular 3DS systems? That's one of the things I was thinking about. I'm like, so the 2DS and the 3DS, are they going to just stop this altogether? Because if you have games that are going to need the extra horsepower from the beefed up CPU, are you really going to want to bother making the older hardware that can't go and take advantage of that? So then you have people that will not be able to play a certain amount of your gaming library. And again, this just harkens back to the days of Nintendo 64, where everybody had to go and get the RAM expansion pack, because it was like, how the fuck do you plan on playing Conker's Bad Fur Day, and how do you plan on playing Perfect Dark, and Rogue Squadron, and a bunch of other games that are out there? How are you actually going to be able to enjoy them without this little motherfucker jammed right in there? So, again, it all remains to be seen. I'm kind of excited about it, but at the same point, my wallet can't really afford it right now, but that doesn't really matter because this shit is even coming out this year, at least not here, and not in, like, PAL regions and stuff like that. Apparently it is in Japan. I'm assuming that they're probably going to be aiming for a holiday season in Japan at some point. Everywhere else, we're just going to have to wait and find out, but I am kind of curious about that SD card thing. And I do want to get my hands on a system just to be able to see what the ZL and ZR buttons are going to end up feeling like. If it's going to be like that old school Pro Controller on the Wii, or, you know, maybe it'll feel better. I have absolutely no fucking clue. Because I know that they outright replaced that with the one that had the handles, and the buttons were vertical from one another, you know, from that point forward. So, who knows? But what do you think about this? Do you think it's a cash-in? Do you think this is a permanent upgrade? Do you think it's a big deal? Because I've seen an equal amount of people who were pretty fucking pissed off about something like this, and then a large amount of people that were excited about the prospects of what this could mean in the future from this point going forward. Because it's obvious Nintendo is investing in this for the long haul rather than trying to go and implement a lot of these ideas into the next, you know, version of their handheld, you know, family. Fuck, I couldn't think of a word there for a sec. But it can go either way. Just opinions, thoughts, feelings, shit like that. It's a whole lot of stuff. I was kind of shocked that they had so many changes going with this. Like, oh, and the games load from the bottom now, so it won't be going from top. It's at the bottom. So, yeah, there's that. Oh, and apparently a better battery. So, yeah. I have to remember to include every single thing. Like I said, it was a whole lot of shit, so I was just like, god damn. Anyway, this is AlphaOmegaSin. As always, nerds, nerdettes, and gamers, game the fuck off.